Good morning, Marga. I'm just testing sound. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
If someone can speak, I just want to use.
Marga, sorry, we're just testing our speaker system here. Can you just say something so that I can hear?
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Margo.
Good morning, Chairperson, everyone on the platform. Chair, we correct. We can start proceedings if you're in order with that, Chair.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, Andre. Are we ready?
Yes, Chair, we can ready. Shall I do the roll call, Chair?
Please do.
Mr. Kigaba,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chance,
I'm present. Thank you.
Mr. Mdludli,
I'm present. Thank you, Andre.
Mr. Makutu,
Yes, Mania.
Mr. Nchingila,
Present, Chair.
Chair, those are our members. Mr. to double check, Mr. Gama, Mr. Gama is on the platform, Chair. Those are the members currently on the platform, Chair. We may proceed, we correct.
Thank you very much. Can you please place the agenda before the meeting? Can we get a move and seconder for the agenda?
Lufefe Mkutu, I move to adopt the agenda, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any seconder?
August, I second the agenda, Chair.
Thank you very much. Agenda is seconded. Any apologies?
Chair, we have apologies from Mr. Langa, who's attending another meeting, Ms. Webster, and Mr. Thring, Chair.
Okay. 3 apologies.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. And then is the minister and the deputy minister on the?
Chair, I think the delegation, I don't see them. The delegation will be led by Ms. Matumela, I assume, Chair.
Okay. Ms. Matumela, over to you and your team.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to the Honorable Chairperson and the Honorable members. Just wanted to show my face. Good morning to the Chairperson and the Honorable members. Chair, my name is Nontombi Matomela. I am from the DTIC. I am from the DTIC side with my colleagues, Zandile Brown, who is from the policy branch, as well as Wongiwe Mashanise, who is from the planning and reporting side. Chair, we thank the portfolio committee as always for the opportunity to present ourselves in front of this August committee. Chair, the last time the NLC was in front of this August House, I think it was in September 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And I think at the time, as a DTIC family, we were all busy with the revision of the plans under the 7th administration. And today, Chair, we are coming, the NLC is coming in front of this committee to present that revised annual performance plan as well as their performance report for Q3. Chair, from the NLC side, we have members of the board on the platform. We also have the commissioner as well as the senior leadership within the entity. And in terms of the presentation, Chair, Ms. Jody Scholz, the commissioner of the NLC, will lead the delegation and the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Commissioner, if you can also introduce the team.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honourable members. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Chair, if I could just, through you, just acknowledge my board members that are present. We have Professor Bonnie Pachana, the chairperson of the National Lotteries Commission, joining us, Ms. Beryl Ferguson, and I also see Ms. Precious Mvulani on the platform. So, Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity for us to present. I'm just going to pull up my slides. If you'll just give me a minute, please. Good morning, Chair, honourable members. Thank you very much for the opportunity for the National Lotteries Commission to present our Q3 financial and non-financial performance. I have a team here with me. We're sharing, we're all seated in one boardroom. So I have Ms. Tina Maharaj, the CFO. I have Mr. Vincent Jones, the Chief Audit Executive. I have Mr. Rudzani Chigimani, the Senior Manager for Stakeholder Marketing, Media and Communications. Mr. Andre Kritzinger, the Acting CIO. Ms. Tinswalin Kuna, the Executive Responsible for Regulatory Compliance. Mr. Aaron Molemo Mokholani, the Chief Risk Officer. We have Advocate Lesedi Boyhang, the Executive Legal Services. Mr. Kreet Mashego, the Senior Manager for Corporate Performance. And then Ms. Anashni Maharaj Doman, who is the Acting COO. This is the team that I have with me in our boardroom, Chair and honourable members. And I will also share the presentation with the CFO. She will touch on the financial performance. So as the brief was, we will be just going through a brief overview of the National Lotteries Commission, our revised and amended annual performance plan, strategic objectives and outcomes, and then I'll go into quite a bit of detail around our non-financial performance. Tina will come in on the financial performance, and then there are some other legacy matters that we've included in our presentation. In terms of our legislative and our constitutional mandate, we regulate, we advise, and we distribute. And so what this means is that we get a portion of the ticket sales from each lottery ticket that goes into National Lotteries Distribution Trust Fund. That then provides the funding for us to distribute to worthy causes through our grant funding area. We advise the Minister on any matters relating to the National Lottery, the sports boards and other lotteries, and then we are also the regulator for the National Lottery. In terms of our mandates, I think what we do is on our grant application side, we invite applications to apply to us for funding. Currently, our call opened on the 2nd of December and it's closing on the 31st of March 2025. And I'll chat about a bit also about that later. What we've done is we've also gone online now for the first time. We also do a lot of public awareness, education and awareness. We do outreach in terms of talking not only about the provisions within the Lotteries Act. Tinswalo and area talk about the regulatory compliance, about society lotteries as a vehicle for sustainability for NPOs and NPCs within the space. And we also have a vested interest in ensuring that the interests of each participant who plays in the National Lottery is adequately protected. And then also, underpinning the work that we do is we conduct research on worthy causes that may be funded, and this forms the tenet of or the anchor of our research-based policy. In terms of our strategic objectives, we have a number of outcomes. We have 6. We've aligned these to the 3 key focus areas in terms of job creation, poverty reduction, reducing red tape, as well as building a capable state. And so our mandate is aligned to the mandate of government. And so the first one is, how do we build a capable, skilled, ethical and motivated team? We need to improve our stakeholder relationships and our engagements. We need to ensure that as a national lottery, and this is one of the tenets, the anchor points of the board's modernization strategy, is that we have innovative and ethical systems and processes. We also need to ensure that we reducing red tape and looking at our processes. Going online is certainly one of the ways in which we've done that. We need to also ensure that we contribute towards...
Sorry to interrupt, Jody. Sorry to interrupt. I did put my hand up, but the slides aren't moving forward on the screen.
Oh, slides are not moving.
No. We're still on slide 1.
Okay, sorry for that. If you can take down the hand. Can the technical team please check that?
Let me stop sharing, Chair, and then let me try and reshare. Just checking if you can see. I'm on slide 7.
Is it possible to show the presentation mode, not the mode you're currently in? Because it just makes the screen a bit smaller.
Is there no one other than you, Jody, who can share the presentation while you present? Maybe it can be helpful.
Okay, let me do that. Kreet, are you able to? Can we use your laptop to? Okay, then let me ask somebody else to do that, Chair. Just give me a minute. I'll just unplug from our system. Apologies for that.
Chair, maybe ask Margot to share the document. Maybe that will assist, Chair, if Margot
Okay.
can do that.
Oh, can you please share the document so that it's easier?
I will share that with Margot right now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Just hang on. I don't know why it's doing this. Tina, can you send that to Saroj?
Chair, Margot is sharing, Chair. Would that assist? Yeah.
Andre, I've just included 2 additional slides.
Okay.
So I'm forwarding it to Margot. I'll send it to Saroj and to. Oh gosh, I don't have Margot's email address. I've sent it to Saroj.
Chair, so just to switch it, there's a display settings to switch it into either both screen being the same. Should resolve the challenge. So Jody, display settings on top. Swap.
But it's grayed out, Margot. I don't have access to that. Be able to give me access, please?
That is visible. So if you can't fix it, then I think we could just go ahead. That's my view.
Okay, thank you. And so we've been able to revise our strategic objectives and our outcomes in line with these 6 specific areas. What we've also done is in order to, I just want to check, are the slides moving, Honorable Chance?
Yes, they are moving. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been trying to, yeah, I'm not able to swap it into presenter mode. And so what we've been able to do is just for ease of us, just in terms of implementing our strategy, what we've done is we have identified a number of critical areas. So collaboration is critical in terms of our modernization drive. We've been able to collaborate with the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, the Department of Basic Education, the Department of Social Development, as well as the South African Revenue Services, as we've built our online application platform. So collaboration, not only with our operational partners, but also in terms of collaboration with our critical stakeholders. A big area of work that the board has driven has been around improved governance and compliance, and ensuring that we have the relevant subcommittees that actually guides and has oversight of the work of the National Lotteries Commission. Internally, we've also looked at a number of internal governance measures. We've been able to beef up capacity in the risk area to identify strategic, operational, fraud, ethical risks, as well as in terms of our forensic forensic and auditing units. In terms of workforce development, we need to ensure that because our way of working is online, that we develop, we upskill, we reskill individuals to take them along with this journey. Also looking at how we communicate, we've been able to resuscitate a number of our platforms, Facebook, Instagram. We've got our own WhatsApp channel so that we can reach our beneficiaries and our grantees as quickly as possible. And then driving all of this is how do we create an ecosystem, social cohesion that supports a developmental economy, and also one that is growing. And so social cohesion talks to the kind of grants that we fund and the impact that has on society. And then also looking at our regulatory monitoring, it's also looking at society lotteries, other kinds of lotteries, and also the national lottery. We have a number of output indicators. I'm not going to go through many of these because I think it's covered in the action plan, but I think I'll just touch on a few that I haven't touched on. So I think change management is quite central to how we approach our people and people development. And so that's been a big focus. We've also looked at our education and awareness campaigns, but in terms of both mandates. I'm talking both from the regulatory compliance point of view, as well as from the grant funding point of view, to ensure that we are able to reach individuals. And we're not just focusing on urban areas, we're also looking at rural areas. So for instance, what we did recently is that we looked at our database and we saw that there were a number of people who had applied for grants or registered on the system, and they hadn't completed their registration process. And because we know where these organizations are, we then did targeted education and awareness sessions in these areas, invited those NPOs and NPCs into these sessions to understand what are some of their challenges and how we can assist in unlocking that. We've done that in collaboration with the Department of Social Development. Driving digital transformation is central to the work of the National Lotteries Commission, and so we're needing to look at how we're implementing our digital transformation strategy. What we've also focused on quite extensively, using the Sigma 6 methodology, is redesigning and mapping new business processes. So we've gone back to basics. We've said we need to understand what is the baseline process, how does the workflow, how does it come in? And we've then been able to look at this sequentially. So we looked at the areas of highest risk for us, and that was our grant funding. We also looked at our finance area, and we're going through the organization in this way using a defined methodology. One of the big areas, and I think this is the reduction in the timelines for the payment of grantees, is a new APP target, and then as well as the adjudication of applications received within 150 days. In terms of building a capable and ethical development, research-based funding, one of the fundamental areas that the board has identified is education and in particular early childhood development programs. So we're doing some research on what is the model of ECD that we would like to fund and support. We've realized that we've spent over 500 million on ECDs over the past 5 years. That hasn't yielded tangible results in terms of changing the actual impact outcomes. So we know that only 11% of children who've gone through an ECD program are school ready. And so we've had to go back to the drawing board to look at what is our program fund and how do we fund it and what would be an optimal model. So on Friday, we're getting the first bit of that research, and we'd be very excited to share that with the portfolio committee in subsequent meetings. In the past, we only had 20% of funded projects being monitored and evaluated. We're now saying each and every project that we fund must go through a monitoring and evaluation process. We've also been able to increase the number of structured capacity building programs nationally. We've revisited how we've actually designed these programs. This is an area of continuous improvement that we're rolling out. And so we look at things around financial literacy, around report writing, skills that people who apply for our funding actually need in the execution of their work. In terms of inclusive growth and job creation, we're looking at the research-based model, how we can look at projects that have maximum impact. We're also tracking the number of jobs created or retained by grantees, and that would form part of the detailed presentation. In terms of the revised budget outcomes, we projecting, you'll see for 25-26, it's 560 million and expenditure 597. The decrease and the corresponding expenditure in 25-26 was based on a very conservative view that we wouldn't have income after the 31st of May 2025. And these figures have subsequently been revised in our 2025-26 annual performance plan because we have included the utilization of reserves to fund further calls. So currently we have a call out, and the intention is that as soon as we've been able to adjudicate that, so we're looking around about June, July to issue a very substantive call out into the market. This just gives a brief breakdown of our how our budget is actually split. So operational costs are about 20%, employee costs 15%, and the bulk, as it rightly should go, is towards grant allocations, and that's 65% of our budget. In terms of the share of ticket sales and operating costs, this slide just demonstrates that the share of ticket sales have increased by 1% year on year, and that our operating costs have been maintained below budget due to some timing differences in terms of when we've actually implemented projects, as well as a cost-saving initiative that we've undertaken. In terms of our non-financial performance, we've been able to achieve a number of our targets. So in terms of reskilling interventions for our human capital area, we've been able to do that because we realize that individuals we're moving into a digital environment. Our HCM colleagues need to be able to understand the requirements placed on internal colleagues. And so we've had a big focus on how do we reskill internal colleagues. I think in this current fourth quarter, that's shared across a number of other areas. We've also been able to engage colleagues in various change management initiatives so people could understand the rationale for the modernization. Our target for education and awareness, we've achieved 15 engagements in quarter 3, and cumulatively it's 94. So, and that's against an annual target of 75. The one target that we haven't achieved, and so this is as at the end of December, was that we didn't implement module 3. We've implemented module 2, but not module 3. That has subsequently been done in January 2025. But as at the time of the quarter 3 reporting, module 3 had not been implemented. So the way the system has been developed and designed is it's in a modular fashion, and we have 7 modules, and this forms the heart of our digital transformation strategy. And a target that we also have not achieved in terms of business processing, and I'd explained we're using a particular methodology, namely the Sigma 6 methodology, which then sets out very, in very detailed steps what needs to happen. And so there have been some timing differences in terms of mapping processes. Subsequent to the quarter 3 performance, we've implemented weekly performance monitoring sessions where we're tracking all of the annual performance targets that haven't been reached. And so the quarter 4 should indicates that we would have met our annual target. In terms of the timely payments of grants, there's been an overachievement. We've been able to reduce our timelines by 17% from 85 days to 45 days. Other targets that we've been able to achieve relate to the monitoring of the National Lottery license and the sports pools, as well as engagements with the Northwest Gambling Board. This was had in quarter 3 in December. And we've also been able to manage the National Lottery and sports pools licensing process. We've also been able to achieve targets relating to the ECD program. So they've conducted the research, and we're now looking at implementation. The area that we hadn't achieved, and this was literally just by one visit, we had really worked very hard in terms of this, but I think these were circumstances beyond our control. We had a target of 266 projects that we needed to visit. We visited 265. The last one, the individual was there, but then there were some issues around parking and accessing the facility, and then the beneficiary was not available later in December. So we missed that target literally by one visit. We've also been able to implement 3 structured capacity building programs. What we've also done is we've trained up colleagues internally to enable them to do this going forward. The research-based funding policy was amended and retabled, and that was approved in January of this year, January 2025, but as at quarter 3, it was amended, but it hadn't been tabled, and the board approved it subsequent to this. In terms of our job creation targets, we achieved 1,424 jobs were granted that were either created or retained by our grantees. And so this is confirmed. So when we do a pre-site inspection visit, we get a sense of the number of jobs likely to be created for the duration of the project. And then 6 months after the project has concluded, we then do a visit, a monitoring and evaluation visit, where we actually go and confirm were the objectives of the project met, and the job creation target forms one of those. We didn't consider the applications adjudicated within 150 days. The call for the new call went out on the 2nd of December, and so we didn't consider this as a target as part of quarter 3, but definitely we'll do that as we move into quarter 4. So in total, we've achieved 10 targets. We haven't achieved 4. Our performance is at 71%. I must also just indicate that in terms of the previous call, the 23-24 call, we've been able to adjudicate the applications, and that call has officially closed in December because all of the, and I get to that a bit later, all of the applications had been adjudicated and we then depleted our funds. We also talk in our quarterly reports about the ministerial impact targets, and this is our Q3 progress. In terms of spending money on goods and services, we have been able to contribute 2.5 million in local spend, and we've recently put out a furniture tender, and we've also specified that we do need local manufacture and adherence to specific national standards in that. So we're expecting another 3 million would be made before the end of this financial year. In terms of the allocations made, we were able to spend 94% of allocations amounting to 4.1 million in the arts sector, and that looked at skills and development programs. In terms of jobs, and this is a target for the year to date, 855 jobs were supported by the NLC funded projects. And the call which opened on 2nd of December, we've prioritized NPOs that create, either retain or recruit individuals into their projects. And so funding will include an allocation for wages, salaries and stipends. And we find that stipends are particularly important, particularly in areas like food gardens, where you bring in community members and you can then give them stipends. So that we find is quite popular across the projects that we grant funding to. In terms of the looking at support programs, 52% of our budget was allocated to support programs, and then the budget for the 23-24 call actually had been depleted. We've been able to complete 89 case studies year to date, and we've done 20 in Q3. Our target for the financial year is 100. We've also been able to conduct 94 education and workshops done. We've done 15 engagements in Q3. At the end of Q3, the NLC, in terms of our procurement, we made payments amounting to 58.8 million to 107 suppliers who met the definition of SMMEs, and we're expecting another 15 million to be made in Q4. In terms of reducing red tape, we've met with the director within the DTIC to look at reviewing our Act and our regulations. We've started this process and we are busy tracking this. I think critical to the red tape reduction is also our online application system that is also intended to reduce red tape. I can also report to the Portfolio Committee that we have been able to zero rate our website. So that means people would need just a little amount of data to get onto our website. But once you are transacting on our website in terms of registering or applying for a grant, it is data free. So the NLC covers those costs. Looking then at additional priorities from the Minister in terms of supporting, ensuring that, the vulnerabilities that led to corruption and the abuse is stopped and proactively identified and reduced. We've been able to complete quite a few lifestyle audits, lifestyle reviews. We've done 60 as at the end of Q3. And that number has really picked up in Q4. I've already spoken about the research-based funding. I'm not going to repeat that, Honourable Chair and members. And then the additional priority is that we needed to look at all of our transactions involving consultants, law firms, ICT firms, public relations, and we've been able to conduct 10 investigations of high value transactions. These were handled in quarter 2 and quarter 3, and those were the ones that we had completed those matters. We have also referred quite a number of cases to the SIU because it falls within their proclamation period. In terms of the investigations, we've been able to complete 17. And what we've done is we've actually used one of these investigations that was done in the last calendar year, in this calendar year, as a case study, so that we all understand what are the things that we need to look at and how we need to review both people and process. Our forensic investigation, we have a register, we've got an internal audit tracker as well as an audit tracker to monitor the Auditor General's findings and the recommendations and then management commitments. And this also forms part of our quarterly reporting. We report this into the Board Audit and Risk Committee, which has a number of independent members sitting on that. So that also enhances the overall governance within the NLC. In terms of the reparations process, one of the areas was that we needed to look and see how we could support people who had been threatened or dismissed, and our reparation initiative proposal has 2 elements to it. The one is an individual focus and the other one is a community-based. And so as at the end of quarter 3, we went to the Northern Cape. We engaged with one community and looked at and had a very deep dive engagement there, and we looked at 2 other properties. We were also able to contact a number of individuals who had come forward to us, and that process is on track. In terms of, so I've also then addressed the next one, that's the community infrastructure projects. So what we are aware of is that there are 22 of these buildings in various stages of repair or disrepair. And the process that the board has approved is that we do a really detailed community engagement process. So the engagement has happened with one community, and there's a rollout plan for the rest. In terms of providing reports to beneficiaries, we do this, we publish this on our website on a monthly basis. I think there's the payment list, and then it's also captured in our annual report. In terms of oversight, the chairperson in the last calendar year went around to all of the provinces, had extensive engagements with all of the stakeholders, and we are using that information to enhance our processes as well as our stakeholder engagement processes. We've been able to also look at a number of our business processes. I indicated earlier we were using the Sigma 6 methodology, and so we've been able to identify areas where there have been instances where there have been internal control deficiencies, and we've been able to strengthen controls significantly in that space. In terms of the license process, the evaluation and adjudication processes have been concluded, and the minister issued a statement in December stating that he is considering additional matters as he is applying his mind to the award of the license. In terms of grant funding, we went out on a targeted call in July for the Paris Olympics Team South Africa. SASCOC responded to that, and we made an allocation to them. I think when we're looking at our 23-24 applications, there's an average allocation of around 900,000 per application. We've adjudicated a total of 5,303 applications across all of the 4 sectors since the start of that call, and we were able to then complete the adjudication for this. The next few slides talks to how much we per sector. We are concerned about the low rates, especially in the Eastern Cape, the Free State, Limpopo, and the Northern Cape. And what we've done in the new financial year, we've tasked our provincial managers to develop a state of the province list of what are the specific areas that desperately need funding. And so just yesterday, we had an engagement with an arts association, and we've asked for their assistance, especially in the Northern Cape, to identify which other NPOs could qualify for funding and support. So there is an active program that we're busy implementing to look and see how we can ensure that the grant allocation is a lot more equitable, and it also takes into account the very specific needs of the province. Oops. So what we've done, just in terms of the allocations per sector, out of the total allocations of 781 million, 60% is well, within the charity sector, 60% was allocated to the protection of the vulnerable, 25% to early childhood development, 1% to food security, 6% to animal welfare, and 8% to GBV. These are areas that we're looking at, particularly gender-based violence. The board has identified this as a critical area, also under research-based funding, and so the NLC is busy working on proposals in that regard. In terms of the arts, culture, and national heritage, the total allocation has been 309 million, and 70% allocated to arts, culture, cultural heritage development, and the remaining percentages were distributed in terms of national heritage and environment, and then school sports, culture, and heritage development of 11%. In terms of sports and recreation, the total allocation was 332 million, 52% went to school sports, and then the remaining categories in terms of macro bodies, national federations, and local, provincial, regional, and district federations amounted to 48% of that 332 million. In terms of miscellaneous, so in terms of the regulations, it's 2% of that allocation. It was 26 million, and we've spent it, it was allocated in terms of 64% directed towards programs spanning across all of those three sectors. And even though, you know, they didn't quite fit into one sector, they spanned across all. So that's what the 64% accounted for. And then 36% was allocated for emergency projects. The next slide is a summary of all of the sector allocations per province. I'm not going to go into the detail, but suffice to say, for the 23-24 call, we've a total of 1.4 billion rand has been allocated. In terms of our project monitoring, we check all of the eligible projects, and we ensure that we monitor those that are eligible. This is the data per province, and you can see, I think the one site visit that we missed, that was in Gauteng. In terms of job creation statistics, these are the job creation statistics. So we look at both permanent jobs created or retained, as well as temporary jobs created or retained within projects that are implemented. And so I think I'm not going to talk to any of the numbers, but it adds up to 1,424, with 733 being permanent and then 691 being temporary. In terms of job creation, in looking at who benefits, so this table talks to the fact that 76% of our beneficiaries are in fact children, and it's mostly in the sports and recreation center. The arts sector benefited the highest number of youth, with 83% of beneficiaries from that sector. In terms of stakeholder management, what we've implemented, and this is this is a slide that we've just inserted just to indicate that since Q4, we've been able to, and since the launch of our online application platform, we've had 30 sessions in partnership with DSD, and we've assisted 2,214 attendees, either in terms of helping them to get registered on the system, or they've already registered, but they're having then some challenges. And so that's what that help desk. So we went around the country, identified 2 areas per province. We were hoping to replicate this in the next coming week or so that we can conduct additional of these help desk sessions. We've also then conducted 15 sessions going through very specific application criteria, compliance, what is best practice, trying to ensure that we help NPOs grow and become sustainable. This just gives you the number of education and awareness sessions per province, as well as then the number of attendees. I think this just gives us a total breakdown in terms of the sessions that we've had. And as I've indicated, this is work that we definitely are looking to continue in this current quarter. We're wanting to do 36 education and awareness sessions for quarter 4. I'm going to hand over now to the CFO just to take us through the financial performance. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable members of the board, colleagues from the DTIC and the NLC. Chair, this slide, I think it was not deleted. So the actual numbers are tabled on the following slide. Apologies for that. But if you look at our Q3 performance, Chair, I think the total lottery ticket sales amounted to just over 5.8 billion rand, of which the NLC share was just over 1.4 billion rand. Our fees from society lotteries was 41,000 rand for the year. For the year to date, at the end of December, we approved grants of 756 million rand, and the total allocations expensed was 624 million rand. And these numbers, if you add them up, ties back to the 1.4 billion rand that we dispersed in total for the 2023-24 call that closed at the end of December, or was fully distributed by the end of December. Our cash disbursements amounted to 807 million rand for the year, and we've made significant progress in reducing turnaround times. Turnaround times were sitting well over 100 days towards Q1 and Q2, and we've reduced that significantly. I think on average, we're sitting at 70 days, but if you look at the actual turnaround time for the 23-24 call, we've managed to reduce that to 45 days. So we're trying to keep that number well below the 60-day turnaround time as required by the Act. Chair, from a statement of financial position perspective, which is our balance sheet, we still have quite a strong balance sheet. Our reserves at the end of December were sitting at 4.3 billion rand, and we are going to utilize these reserves, as Commissioner alluded to fund a new call in the current financial year and also supplement calls in the following 2 financial years. So we've done a significant amount of work in terms of scenario planning, in relation to the lottery license and how we're going to utilize these reserves to reach our beneficiaries. Chair, I'll hand back over to Commissioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair, in terms of the legacy report under the 6th administration, these were some of the areas that of focus. So I think the first one was the SIU. I'm not going to delve into that. The SIU did appear before the portfolio committee, but I think just to indicate that we've referred 17 cases to the SIU for further investigation. We've registered 10 criminal cases with SAPS, and we continue to collaborate with law enforcement agencies, including the SIU and the NPA. In terms of looking at disciplinary action taken against those employees who were implicated in the corruption by the SIU, we've been able to dismiss the one individual in Q3, and then we commenced with disciplinary hearings for 3 individuals who were suspended in the Free State. We've conducted 60 lifestyle reviews, and in terms of the quantum of the community infrastructure projects, we've not yet been able to conclude this. It's an ongoing process. What we've been able to do is put together a project plan that sets out which area we'll attend to at which stage. The challenge that we have here is that the SIU has also asked for quantity surveying reports, and so we have to wait for those reports before we can move on those specific projects. We're looking at we've been able to fill our senior management position, the stakeholder management, marketing and communications post was filled, and we've also had one member of the distributing agency who's resigned during the reporting period, and the DTIC is seized with the recruitment process of the distributing agencies. We are in the process of looking at our divisional structures. There are 7 that are ready to go to the board, and this is what we intend doing in Q4. The research-based policy, I've already spoken about that, as well as the license process. One of the areas I would like to touch on, though, is on our material irregularity investigations by the Auditor General. We've gotten 3, and the information that we've sent to them, they've written to us and deemed that the actions are sufficient in terms of what they've identified. Modernization is a big part of the turnaround strategy within the NLC. I'd indicated earlier that our approach to modernization is, our approach to systems development is modular. So the registration of profiles, that went live on the 1st of December. The applications for funding went live on the 2nd of December. And then the assessment option, module 3, went live on the 25th of February. And so we've been able to conduct staff training. We've been able to use online platforms, disseminated quite a bit of training videos, and then our ICT infrastructure also has to support our grant funding platform. So here we've looked at broadband storage servers and cybersecurity solutions, and then we've also been able to conclude on the zero-rated process with Vodacom. Our registrations that we've achieved to date are 11,416. Online registrations, 11,292. Walk-ins are 124. Compliant registrations are 1,626. And we are working actively on that to get the remaining ones compliant. What we're also finding is when we're looking at the data is that people have registered, but they are still within their calling off period. So they would not be eligible during this call. But we've indicated to people to please register on the system so that your data is captured. And people are doing this in anticipation of the next call that we're planning for later in this year. We're seeing about 25% of the organizations that are registering. These are NPCs. 68% are NPOs. Schools are about 7%. And what we're finding is that DSD has gone on a massive deregistration drive. They've released a statement recently saying that 38% of the NPOs that they have on their database is actually compliant. We did research of our own earlier this year. The University of Pretoria has indicated to us that overall within the sector, there's only a 25 compliance rate. So in terms of our transformation actions to enable NPOs to be compliant, we believe that it's talking and in capacitating NPOs about digital literacy, about compliance. And so that is the key focus for the remaining from now until the end of this current financial year. We have got 603 registrations in progress. Completed applications are 139, and then partially completed applications are 464. So we're wanting to look at those applications. We know where they are, and so our approach is very targeted so that we ensure that as many compliant organizations register and are able to access funding. Some of the challenges and risks that we're facing in this online space and having engaged with our stakeholders is that I think the complexity and the scope of the project, for instance, having to rely on back-end data integration, I think that's come with a number of challenges. And so we also need to also go back to the drawing board just to look at our current skills and the actual capacity. We've been able to sign quite a few MOAs with a number of partners, but there are quite a few that are outstanding. And so we also need to look at our ICT staff involvement, and that's primarily due to skill and capacity constraints. There's a skills transfer that happens as the projects as the project is being rolled out. But I think in this area, we really do need to look at some additional resources. And then I think one of the risks that I've spoken about earlier is just the deregistration drive by both DSD and CIPC. So that has a potential to impact our process, but also then our brand and our reputation. And we're addressing this through what we call a war room. So we've got our technical partners, we've got our internal colleagues, we've got DSD, and we are also looking to train quite a few more internal individuals to be part of these war room concepts. So they're stationed, but then we then go out into all of the provinces with the provincial managers and getting people getting the issues resolved. One of the big areas that I think we need to focus on, and I think this is an area of transformation that the NLC can play a key role in, is in terms of digital literacy and ensuring rural access. So our new system is called Tutuka, and the education and awareness drive is intended to support the applicants in terms of registration. We also signed an MOU, I think it was early last year, with Chieta, the chemicals CETA, and they have 4 smart skill centers in deep rural areas. They plan, I think, on rolling out 1 per province, and so we've also been able to negotiate access in these smart skill centers for our grantees and our beneficiaries. So even if they want to utilize it, they can for meetings and such like, or just go there and hop onto computers so that they can do their online application. Just in terms of where to from here, I think we've already done the UAT for modules 3 and 4. We need to then expand our war room strategy, continue with the capacity building, and then also working with Chieta to do active deployment in these centers, because we found that we actually need somebody stationed there on a permanent basis to assist, so that we can also use that as an additional point of reference. We've done some video guides to assist applicants in terms of where they are with their verification and registration process, and then also finalizing these memorandum of agreements and the application process interfaces, which is basically the back end part of the system integration with our collaboration partners. I've spoken about the 0 rating. And then it's looking at the business process mapping for the remaining NLC divisions, and also then looking at our internal capabilities and using AI to assist us in evaluating annual financial statements as part of our funding application process. And then I think it's just bringing in some external support from a human resource point of view to help us look at various aspects of our modernization drive. I think some of the key areas, we're seeing enhanced compliance because we're using multi-factor authentication. So our system is also able to tell us, for instance, we have 538 applications that have been done via agents. Now, the act is quite clear. Agents are prohibited. And so what we are doing is we're engaging with those NPOs to, one, verify that they know that somebody's applied on their behalf, because we also know that NPOs were hijacked in the past. And then secondly, if they have applied, how can we enable them so that they can apply going forward? So I think our modernization program is yielding some benefits. I think there are still some challenges that I've spoken about, and I think this it's a fundamental enabler to compliance in the NPO, NPC, and PBO sector space. It also supports the FATF grey listing efforts that South Africa is currently seized with, as well as then making sure that our grant funding process is efficient and effective. Chair and honourable members, we've got a number of case studies. I may, Chair, with your permission, if I could pause here, unless you'd like me to continue. And then I'm not sure if my chairperson would like to come in and just add one or two closing remarks, but I'll be guided by you. Thank you, chairperson and honourable members.
No, we're fine. If the chair wants to say something briefly, no problem.
Honorable Chair and honorable members of the committee, my name is Bani Pikiana, Chairperson of the National Lotteries Commission, and I also greet my colleagues on the board of the National Lotteries Commission and members of the executive team. I don't have much to say except to applaud before this committee the work that is being done at executive level under the leadership of the commissioner from where we were 2 years ago and where we are today. The progress has been just remarkable, and that is all due to the professional expertise in spite of difficulties. And what I really wish is worth pointing out is that in spite of the history of malfeasance in the organization, the National Lotteries Commission has not been stuck in ambulance and police work only, but they have been able to move in affirming the mandate that is made available for us by the Act. And that, I think, is hugely a matter of great appreciation and applause. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything from the department? If there is any closing remarks from the department, then I'll open for members. I assume there is none. Andre, you will then assist me in case I can't see. Can I now invite members of the committee to come through?
Mr. Tambo, Mr. Mukutu.
Okay, Mr. Tambo and then Mr. Mukutu.
Mr. Chance.
Mr. Chance.
Those are the three hands that you have currently, Chair. And Mr. Nchinkila.
Mr. Nchinkila, okay. Let's have those four first.
I'm sorry, Andre, I put up my hand.
We have noted you, Mr. Mdluli.
Okay, thanks. Sure.
In that order, Honorable Tambo.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the board for the presentation. I'll ask for indulgence on the camera. I'm in an area with very bad network. But my name is Sinao Tambo. I'm a member of the committee and a member of parliament deployed to the Parliament of South Africa by the Economic Freedom Fighters. My inputs or questions, rather, will be centered around the licensing process, and I'm sure the board will appreciate the fact that this is one of the most contentious and eye-raising aspects of what is happening with the National Lotteries Commission today. So I hope we'll be forgiven for focusing on that aspect, because there's been continuous extensions into the announcement of who is going to be granted the operating license for the National Lotteries Commission. So one of the mandates, of course, of the National Lotteries Commission is to advise the minister on the issuing of the license to operate the National Lottery. And that tender is worth about 180 billion. So it's of public interest for us to sort of get some level of clarity or perspective from the board itself. So there's been this delay since 2022, despite the fact that there's been shortlisting that has been done. And the delay on the 19th of February, as announced by the Minister of Trade and Industry, Parks Dow, has been extended to 2026, citing a need for more evaluation and sort of an applying of his mind onto whether all the necessary legal requirements have been met. So my first question is, what does the board think are the additional evaluations of whether legal requirements have been met that need to be made by the minister in order for him to make this announcement? I understand that he only got into office last year, but I mean, there's been perennial extensions. So what does the board think are any additional evaluations that need to be made, whether internally or legally, to ensure that this process is not tainted? The second one I'd like to raise is whether the NLC does not feel like the minister is involving himself in the operational affairs of the NLC itself by communicating directly with the bidders for this 180 billion tender. Because in his communication, it was noted that he's communicated the extension to 2026, the 31st of May, directly to the bidders. Is this not the role of the National Lotteries Commission? And does the National Lotteries Commission not feel like the minister is overstepping in communicating directly with bidders? And what are their thoughts on that? And then my third question, I think, will be around credibility. I mean, the credibility of the National Lotteries Commission is something that has been under scrutiny for many years. The process which we use to award grants, what criteria you utilize as well. But I think the licensing process is now also becoming an area of scrutiny. And then I'd like to ask in that regard, does the possibility of these delays not amount to considerations of the political exposure of companies that have made the bidding as well? And that's something that is part of public conversation, that there are companies which are allegedly aligned with the African National Congress that are likely to be picked or not be picked. And do you not think that this might be part and parcel of the process of delaying the announcement of who has won the bid for the operating license of the National Lotteries Commission? And I'll be blunt to say it, because I would have thought that there's a level of scrutiny conducted by the NLC of political exposure before any companies are considered or shortlisted and then sent to the minister. I mean, there's companies such as Tebe Investments, which is owned by Patu Trust to the tune of 50%. How was this company considered? How is it part of that process? When we know that it has been donating to the former liberation movement as recently as after the 2021 elections to the tune of 15 million rand. Why is this company part of this process? Hostel Consolidated Investments, founded by Johnny Copeland, if I'm not incorrectly remembering his name, who's said to have donated to the political party aspirations of the current president within the ANC, within the CR17 documents. Why is that company part and parcel of this process? What are the scrutiny measures within the NLC for shortlisting and recommendation, and how does this happen? So I'm interested in your thoughts around that. What exactly do you think constitutes the delays? Because the pronouncement by the Minister of need for further evaluation are extremely vague. So as people who have been intimate with this process or are intimate with the legislation and regulations that determine this process, I'd be interested to know, what do you think this does to the credibility of the NLC in terms of awarding of licensing when politically exposed companies are able to enter this process and reach shortlisting processes? And because there's scrutiny and sort of looking into who's going to get this license, now this process is being continuously delayed. And I think finally the input I'd make is that, is it possible that the announcement of the winner of the operating license for this tender of the Lotteries Commission is being deliberately delayed so that bidding is reopened? And is that possible as well? Is that legally permissible for this process to be reopened due to these vague re-evaluations amounting to something that the minister might say that he does not have a final decision to make? He doesn't think that these companies have met the necessary legal requirements that he considers. Is it permissible for him as an individual to reopen the bidding process? And would it be fair to think that this bidding process would be deliberately delayed so that it can be re-advertised in order to allow these politically exposed companies to diversify and dilute their shareholding and then participate in a new rebidding process with less political exposure and less risk of being in violation of regulations that prohibit politically aligned companies from operating the NLC, and therefore increasing their prospects of success. I think that will be my contribution for now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Member Lufefa, Member Mkutu.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to the colleagues in the platform. Chair, if you could balance what is on the ground, what our constituencies are saying on the ground, and this rosy picture that is being painted through this presentation, you would swear, Chair, that we're talking about a different institution. It's really a fiction to me, this presentation, on the basis that, Chair, ever since I was assigned to this committee, throughout the country, the comments from the general constituencies that we represent is that this institution, Chair, is an institution of patronage, which gives funding to people that are known by employees of this institution, by executives, and grants to people that are closer friends and associates. And this point, Chair, that I'm making, we now know, Chair, through the reports in the media, that celebrities, girlfriends were given money by people who are in the institution or board members of the institution. And we don't know the extent to which that syndicate runs in the institution, Chair. I was with you, Chair, in January in Cape Town when we were visiting a
We are losing you, Honorable Member.
community of disabled peoples approached us. When NPOs, am I audible now, Chair?
Yes, yes, yes.
When NPOs, Chair, of people living with disabilities approached us and said that they applied for grant funding with the lotteries commission. A site visit was done, but they were not responded to. And that occurrence, Chair, throughout the country, I've been interacting with people who have the similar concerns about this entity. Last month, Chair, as I was going through the news, which was something really disturbing, I read an article, Chair, from Corruption Watch that lottery bosses ask state security agencies to investigate whistleblowers. Now, I mean, this was shocking. And maybe we must get a comment on what was the reasoning to say, I am whistleblowing, that there is some sense of corruption that is happening in the institution. And we are saying to the state agency that it must investigate the very same people who are whistleblowers. Is this not a form of intimidation, Chair, to the whistleblowers? And is it not a form of arrogance of lottery bosses who don't want to account on the workings that are happening and the dealings that are happening inside the National Lotteries Commission? I won't go into the issue of lotteries because I think of the license, Chair, because I think my colleague, Honorable Tambo, raised some of the issues. Of course, the issue around exposure to political parties is a general principle that we all share. And would have raised it, Honorable Tambo, even if there were licensing bidders who are associated with the EFF for that matter. So it must not be this thing of isolating the African National Congress only. Even if it was EFF, even if it was a DA, we must apply the same principle. And I think this element of kind of highlighting the ANC as if the ANC is the only political party in South Africa is wrong. So Chair, in real practical terms, I'm saying this rosy picture that is being painted here does not exist on the ground. The projects that are meant to be funded that are developmental in communities, young people that are being run by young people, by women, they are not funded. They are only funded if you know someone in the entity. And I can tell you now, in the Eastern Cape, if you can come to the Eastern Cape, that is the message that people of the Eastern Cape are saying. If you go to Gauteng, if you go to Limpopo, people are saying that on the ground. And this is not reflected in this report. This report paints a rosy picture. And my sense, Chair, is that we need, as this committee, to exercise strict oversight and to be considered in ensuring that officials account, and we must create systems, Chair, through, of course, working with the minister, to ensure that there's transparency, there's accountability, and there's equal access to the grants and assistance in the commission, so that there is no welfare funding here that goes as a patronage to those that are associated with people who are in the commission. Thank you very much, Chair.
Chair, is Mr. Chance next, Chair?
Will I go next? Chair?
Mr. I'm not the chairperson, but you were next in line, Mr. Chance.
Okay. All right, thank you. And thank you very much to Jody Skoltz and Mr. Pachana for your presentations. I'd like to just start by actually reiterating the chairperson's commendation of what's been going on in the last period at the NLC. And I do actually concur with what he says. I do think that, notwithstanding the comments that we've heard from Mr. Mkutu, that there is a significant improvement in performance. And maybe there is a lag between what is happening within the organization and what is perceived out there in our constituencies. A lag, that is, between the past and the present. The past being characterized by patronage and corruption and maladministration, and the present and the future hopefully characterized by a more streamlined and efficient organization that is doing its job without fear or favor. Having said that, I just want to ask a couple of questions, starting off with the operational costs. They weren't presented to us this morning, but we did receive them from our committee support staff. And there are some concerning discrepancies between the approved budgets and the revised budgets. So, for example, if I look at board members' emoluments, they've increased from 8 million rand to 15 million rand. That's a doubling. I'd like to know what that is based on. Consulting fees have increased by 108%, 28 million to 58 million. That's an increase of 30 million rand. Legal fees have increased from 31 million to 78 million. That's an increase of 150%. Investigation costs have gone from 5 million to 39 million, which is a 700% increase, 34 million rand. Travel and accommodation up from 19 to 26 million. So these are significant numbers. And bearing in mind that the investigation and many of the actions that the Lottery Commission has been taking to clean itself up were commenced more than a year ago. Why is it that these revised budgets, the discrepancies are so high in these particular line items? If I could just get some comments on that, please. Then the question of reparations. I'd like to know what budget has been set aside for the payments of these reparations, both to individuals and communities. And can one actually, I know that there's a confidentiality issue here, but if you can just give us a global number for how much money you are setting aside for these reparations in the current financial year and the next financial years as relevant. And then a question relating to the DTIC, Ms. Matamela, the question relating to the extension of the reparations policies and principles to other DTIC entities where there are whistleblowers. It seems to me that it's very important that policies are consistent and that employees of the various entities within the DTIC, and in fact the whole of government, need to be sure that whatever is applied in one institution and government is applied in others. So I'd like to get a comment from the department on that, please. Just to comment on the adjudication process for the new Lotto licensee, and I corroborate again what's been said by honourable members. It does seem very strange that the NLC rather glibly says that the adjudication process has been completed and concluded. And now all of a sudden there's a one-year extension. It raises some really big red flags. And I'm not sure that all the questions can be answered necessarily by the NLC. And I would request from the chairperson of this committee that Minister Tau be called to the committee to account for this decision to extend the time that he has to make a decision by a further 1 year, which seems a really extraordinary amount of time. Bearing in mind that he's had these recommendations through the NLC for some time now, and why is it that it takes so much longer? Then my final question relates to the period between the end of May, when the Atuba license ends, and the end of May 2026. There's an allusion in the presentation from Ms. Scholz that the accumulated funds may be used to run the Lotto, not so much to sell tickets, but to grant money to beneficiaries. When will a decision be made on that? And I note I was informed yesterday that an RFP has been issued for a temporary license to cover the period of May 25 to May 26. And realistically, the only possible winner of that tender could be Atuba, because we know that there is a 6-month period between when one Lotto operator is appointed and when the other one retires, so that the new one can set up all their systems and so on and so on. It's just simply impossible, in my view, to envisage a new operator filling in that one year temporary license period. So it seems to me that the Minister also has some questions to answer on this, and I'd like to get the chairperson's view on this. Is it realistic, actually, that anybody other than Atuba is going to be able to run the Lotto for the next 12 months, which actually goes against the spirit and of the law, which says that the extension can only be for 2 years? And would it not be better to just terminate the license at the end of May and for the NLC to carry on managing the process of grant distribution, rather than cause even more confusion and probably litigation from the losing bidders on this process? It does seem a very messy process, and I reiterate the point that I made to the committee chairperson that we need to get Mr. Tau before the committee to answer these questions clearly. Thank you.
Mr. Nchingila, you were next on the list as indicated by the chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hope I'm audible. Greetings to the chair, honorable members, the executive and the board representatives of NLC. I have quite a couple of questions, mainly on the impact of irregularities on grant beneficiaries as per the reports provided. But what mitigation measures has the NLC implemented to prevent further disruptions to grant payments amid all allegations of fraud, corruption, and the digital system failure? That can the NLC confirm whether the delayed national lottery licensing will have direct impact in its ability to effectively distribute funds? But what are the actions the NLC would have taken to ensure compliance amongst grant beneficiaries, given that 11% of the guarantees were found to be non-compliant in the most recent report. And what is the percentage of the NLC's funding? Has actually reached vulnerable communities versus being spent on administrative and legal costs which are quite disturbing. And also on reparations. Now, can we be provided with a list of individuals who have been granted reparations as well as those anticipated to receive such payments? That given the principle of accountability, financial prudence, and adherence to legal mandates, the minister is further requested to confirm whether an audit or legal review has been conducted to assess the compliance of these reparation processes within the relevant laws and regulations governing public expenditure and governance. Amongst other questions that I have, our analysis would reflect 266 projects funded, and that's about 1.5 billion spent. So in the previous years, with less amounts, the NLC would fund more deserving organizations. The question would be, what would have changed this time around with the huge money that's available with little beneficiaries? And that our analysis further exposes that the NLC did not adhere to 150 days legislated turnaround time. So did the minister approve such a breach of law? Maybe we would require serious clarity on that one as well. But can NLC confirm that of the 11 million organizations that attempted to register on the NLC's modernization system, only 89 were successfully captured? How does the NLC explain these catastrophic failures? And what due diligence was conducted before awarding the contract for this modernization system? Was this service provider ever flagged for non-performance? And how does the NLC, by the way, justify appointing the same service provider responsible for the failed system as the acting information officer? And lastly, Chair, given the NLC's ongoing expenditure on digital transformation strategies, can we be provided with a detailed breakdown of how much has been spent on the modernization system to date? Thank you, Chair.
Apologies, colleagues, honorable members, I just got cut off, so I am back. I'm not sure who was chairing the meeting now.
Chair, it was we were proceeding still, Chair. Next is Mr. Mduli and followed by Mr. Gama, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Mduli.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair. Thank you for the presentation to the NLC team, and I appreciate the questions that were asked by my colleagues. Very insightful and very informative, and definitely we do need those answers. I just have drafted 5 questions on my side, and just to ask the specifics. So the first one is with regards to the grants allocation transparency. The report by the NLC states that 807.8 million in this. In discernments were processed, yet turnaround times for these first tranches of funding have fluctuated significantly. Therefore, what measures are in place to ensure fair and transparent allocation of funds, and how does the NLC prevent politically connected or fraudulent beneficiaries from receiving grants? The second point is with regards to irregular expenditure and investigations. The SIU has submitted a report on various cases of corruption and maladministration can the NLC provide a full breakdown of disciplinary action taken against implicated officials, and why have some investigations, particularly those into community infrastructure projects, not been concluded? The third point is with regards to the lottery operator uncertainty. So the financial projections assume a significant revenue drop in 2025-2026 due to the pending appointment of a new lottery operator. What concrete steps has the NLC taken to ensure that the transition to a new operator is smooth and does not lead to disruptions in funding allocations or regulatory oversight? The fourth point is with regards to job creation claims. The NLC claims that 1,424 jobs were created or retained in Q3, with the Eastern Cape leading with 366 jobs. Can the Commission provide verifiable evidence, such as employer records or UIF submissions, to substantiate these claims of job creation figures, and how does it track whether these jobs are sustainable in the long term? The last point is with regards to the corruption redress and NGO impact. So the NLC reports states that state that it is following up on a redress of NGOs and NPCs affected by corruption. How many legitimate NGOs have received compensation or alternatives support after being disadvantaged by fraudulent grant allocations, and what mechanisms are in place to prevent such abuses from recurring? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any other person who's still missing?
Chair, Mr. Gama, Chair.
Mr. Gama, Honorable Gama.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning. I have been having a rather unstable network, so I may have missed certain parts. So if I ask questions
Chair, we can't hear Mr. Gama clearly. May I suggest maybe put his question in the chat, Chair?
Okay.
Oh, you cannot hear. Yeah, it's been a bit unstable here. Yeah, okay. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Just on my part, I think let's welcome the report as presented by the Commissioner, and we, as a committee, we do note the improvement on some of the areas. For completeness, we will find a mechanism within the committee of oversight to ensure that we sample some of the areas that are positive, so that we can do a quick oversight to compare the notes, so that we can ensure completeness with regard to the facts that are presented here. So we welcome that. So with regard to the license expiry or new license, whatever you call it, we just want to know what sort of which section of the law, either Lotteries Act or PFMA, the Commission has relied on, or the Minister, to extend the validity period for about 12 months, because we just are trying to ascertain as a committee whether this is valid and legal, without questioning the authority of the Minister to interact with the license. Secondly, seeing that the extension that was done by former Minister Patel for 2 years, which complied with Section 14 of the Act, is expiring. So, what mechanism are in place to try and prevent the situation that we once had when there was a change of guard, when there was I think it was a fourth license that was underway, because there was a period where there was no lottery, because the risk, as things stand, appears to be very, very high, because between now and 12 months, can we be taken into confidence what's going to happen? Is it going to be a gap? Is it going to be a license? What is at stake here, so that at least all of us are certain and are able to report to constituencies in terms of what is likely to happen? Because currently we are in the dark, so we don't know what is at stake here. The fourth point is around the tangible commitment that can be made to the committee with regard to ensuring the assurance that the provinces that have not had a high uptake like the Eastern Cape, Free State, Northern Cape, and so on and so on, all those provinces, that there is going to be a deliberate attempt. There is going to be a deliberate attempt to ensure that there is proper support with regard to ensuring that those NGOs that are participating in those areas, they too get to be assisted, even technically, to make sure that they meet the requirements and they're able to service the people in their communities. It's a pity I could not hear the conclusion of Mr. Honorable Mkutu and Honorable Chines. I didn't hear anything you said, as well as Honorable Nchingila. I came at the tail end of what you said. So I hope that Mr. Honorable Gama, you will put your notes in the chat group so that we can follow with regard to the issues. And then I'm not sure. And then maybe over to you, Commissioner, and the team for now, and then we'll come back.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable members, for the questions. Chair, I think the Minister has indicated with respect to the license that he is applying his mind in terms of the statement that he issued on the 21st of December last year. And so, Chair, I think just in terms of the bridging gap, in terms of what's going to happen between, should there be no lottery license, I'm going to ask our Chief Risk Officer, Mr. Aaron Molemo Mokholani, if he can just respond to that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Chairperson and members. In terms of the continuity or business continuity of the NLC, we have done an impact assessment in terms of what will be the impact should the appointment not be made on time. And then we understand that from grant funding, we do fund about 1.4 billion a year. The NLC has about 354 employees. There's unavoidable costs that we still need to incur. We have about 34,000 terminals, which speaks to 34,000 retailers nationally. And then the customers that we serve are in excess of 4 million. So if we do not have the license, all these areas will be impacted. And the financial analysis scenario indicated that we will be able to continue with operations, giving the same amount of grant we've been giving to the grantees, and then maintain the operational cost through the utilization of reserves for a particular point of time. I think it's 2 years, but then the CFO can confirm that. So that's in place. So even if we do not sell a ticket in the new financial year that is coming, we'll still be able to service our grantees. I think, Commissioner, if you can allow me, I can also speak to the issue, how do we prevent fraud? So there's a governance structure that we've put in place. The first one is called Non-Compliance Grantee Management Committee, which looks at dealing with the grantees that have defrauded or did not comply with the grant agreements. Those are being considered. They are listed as non-compliant grantee, which means that they are not able to apply for funding up until they rectify whatever the non-compliance was. They pay back the money. and also a period of 1 year must pass. And then this committee also takes time to refer some of the matters for recovery of losses and then also for further forensic investigations. So we've been very developmental in this approach because there were a lot of grantees that were submitted for listing, but then we realized that some of them are administrative challenges that they have, and then we said instead of listing them, just go and make sure that you capacitate them so that they comply, so that we do not disadvantage those who are not guilty of fraud and corruption, but then it's purely administrative issues. We also have the Loss Control Committee, which looks at the issue of determination of irregular expenditure. We're also dealing with the issues of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The committee does make recommendations for consequence management and response strategies to all the issues of fraud and corruption that are raised. Over and above that, I think the commissioner just alluded to the implementation of the system, the application program interfaces that we have with CIPC, DSD, Department of Basic Education, and the South African Fraud Database also helps us to prevent or to also identify those potential organizations that are likely to defraud the organizations in that space. So I think that's all I have, Chairperson. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Molemo. Chair, I think in terms of Honorable Mukutu's question, in terms of, what is happening on the ground, for the 23-24 call, we concluded all of the adjudication at the beginning of December, and on the 19th of December, we submitted letters. So to all of those who did not who weren't able to get funding. What we have found in terms of our analysis is that the NLC can only fund about 30% of applications that we receive annually. So the 1.4 billion only goes to about 30% of the actual applications we receive. So we've been able to fund 5,303 entities, and what we've been able to do across the various sectors is in terms of the actual adjudication that has been confirmed funding. It is an amount of 1,558 that have actually confirmed funding. The declined funding was 3,709. So I think that alone points to the fact that there's a greater need than we actually have funding for. In terms of looking at sustainability of projects, this is something that we've introduced in fairly recently, that we are looking to say the projects need to have a greater impact and have to be sustainable. And so those are the various models that I mentioned earlier in terms of ECDs that we're looking at. What does a successful and sustainable ECD look like? We need to build that data and we need to get that information quite quickly. So I think, Honorable Mukutu, the article that you referred to, I think this was an article in Ground Up on the 29th of January. It refers to the former chairperson using state security agencies. So it's not related to this current board and this current management team. There was a culture of intimidation in the organization. Anybody who blew the whistle there are some real horror stories that I've heard from colleagues internally. Our focus is on making reparations to those individuals that have come to me, that have come forward, that have spoken about it. So I think we're standing at about, I could be corrected, but it's about 12, could be about 11, 12. The process for reparations is that individuals have notified us. They actually give an affidavit in terms of what had actually happened to them. And then we have two independent advisors. One is a global international human rights expert, Ms. Yasmin Suka. And then we've also got Mr. Fizikili Tiki. And so they then have packaged all of the stories and have put a proposal forward to the board. The board has not yet considered this, that no money has been paid out to anybody as yet. It is still a process that we're busy following. In terms of our request to National Treasury for our surpluses, we've asked for an amount of 20 million to be allocated for reparations. I think our report has got a figure of about 10 million. We have also thought about using the money from the asset forfeiture, but we've got a meeting with the Auditor General, I think, in the coming 2 weeks for us to finalize and to discuss this. So the whistleblowers is not under this current board or this current management team. We have a whistleblower policy that's currently in place. We've also, as part of our international fraud awareness, trained people on how to actually do a protected disclosure so that if anyone's hands is in the till, individuals know exactly what and how to do that. So there's a big focus on 1, transparency, 2, accountability within the NLC. I think, Honourable Chance, thank you very much for your questions. I think you are correct. There is a bit of conflation, I think, between what had happened in the past versus what had happened in the present. And I think I just used that example of the article written in January. It talks to the former chairperson and the former administration. I'm going to ask the CFO to come into those costs, to come and talk about the costs. But I think, I've already addressed the budget that we've been set aside. We've asked Treasury for about 20 million. We're looking at those for individuals. For the communities, we have to have a slightly different approach. And so the approach is that we're going to have to issue specific calls. So for instance, we know that there's an old age home. Well, it's a center in the Northern Cape that was supposed to be a drug rehabilitation center. We are engaging with the community and with the Department of Social Development because they play a key role in determining exactly what are the areas that they can fund and sustain. And then also in terms of what are the needs that they see from the province. So we have to balance all of these as we consider these reparations. So that would then come out of the NLDTF. We'll issue a call. We'll ask NPOs within a particular area if they could come and assist and make proposals, given the community discussion, given the community needs, and then we will manage that accordingly. So it's going to come from kind of 2 separate areas, as it were. I think I'm going to leave all of the questions around the license. I'm not sure if my chair wants to come in, but to the DTIC, Honourable Chair, because I think the process is with the Minister, and that's what we will do. We in terms of the question you had asked, Honourable Chance, about the accumulated funds, the board has already approved. We did a number of financial scenarios. I think we did about 3. The CFO did it, she and her team, and the board has approved a scenario. So they've already given us approval that we can actually go out on another call for applications, which would be in the region of about slightly over R1 billion, as I'd indicated, June, July, once we've gone through the adjudication of the current call that is open. I think the Honourable Shingila, the disruption to grant payments, we're not seeing any disruption because of these financial scenarios, and we've gotten board approval for that in October last year. And so that's not going to impact our ability at all to disburse funds. I think the amount spent on reparations, we haven't spent any money on reparations as yet. We are busy with 6 individuals currently, and they are, sorry, I gave a figure of about 11, 12. It's actually 10 individuals that we are aware of. In terms of individual reparations. And then I had indicated there's about 22 properties that the SIU have investigated that's on their radar that has been the subject of corruption, and that would also then form part of the community reparation. And so we are looking at a process in terms of how do we fast track that, because community engagements do take some time, and we do want to ensure that whatever we fix is actually what the community requires, and that can be supported by the Department of Social Development. I'm just going through. You are correct, Honorable Shingila, that we didn't adhere to the 150 turnaround days time. The reasons for that is there are two reasons. One, we've had to include a number of compliance requirements, and that's taken some time to get settled. One of that is asking NPOs and NPCs for the tax compliance certificate. When I just took on this position, SARS had a meeting with me and indicated to me that the NLC is not itself compliant to the Tax Act because we weren't asking for tax clearance certificates from our beneficiaries. So we had to go back and relook at our processes, relook at the compliance so that we also complied to the laws of the country. And so what we have done is we have also written to the minister. We wrote to Minister Patel and we've written to Minister Parks-Tau as per the Act and the relevant sections to indicate that we haven't met those compliance turnaround times. In terms of our new system, I just want to go through the stats. What we've found is that the total number of individuals who have applied, who have submitted their registrations is 11,416, and we've received about 139 completed applications. So the 11,416 are comprising of NPOs, NPCs who could be in the cooling off period, who are not eligible for funding now. And so we are looking at the data. We've also indicated that there is a big disjuncture because if you look at the NPOs, 7,809 was the figure that I had in my presentation. Only 187 are fully registered. So we are working with DSD to see how we can bridge this non-compliance gap because our regs and the Act is quite clear that we can only pay a compliant application. And so we need to balance, I think, the developmental needs of South Africa and our need to transform the sector with compliance. And that's what we're currently doing in terms of going around the country and making sure that we're talking to our potential grantees and future applicants. I think the CFO will talk to all of the costs and the breakdown, and maybe I could ask her to come in now, and then I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Honourable Chair, members, I think in terms of the cost, Honourable Chance, if you look at the total expenditure that was submitted in the first approved APP versus the revised APP that was tabled, the actual cost difference is 74,000 Rand. So there was a 3.3% increase in the cost. The reason for the line items and the costs on the line items seeming to be increased by such a significant amount relates to a reallocation that was done. So if we look at the original APP, we allocated 59 million Rand to the RFP process, which was included in a separate line item. In the midterm review, we reallocated those costs per its economic clusters or economic classifications. So therefore, the costs were reallocated to board emoluments, consulting fees, legal fees, investigations, and travel expenditure. And that resulted in the significant increase. But if you look at the total expenditure, there was only a 3.4% increase in that number. I hope that clarifies, Honourable Chance. We're happy to submit in writing if there's further clarity that's needed on those costs. I think, honourable members, in terms of the modernization project and how much we have spent on that to date, we will submit written representation of those costs and what makes up the number over the last 2 years. We do have that, and we will table that post this meeting. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tina. I don't know, Tina, if you also want to just chat about the steps in place to prevent irregular expenditure. I think Molemo has already touched on the loss control committee that looks at all of the irregular expenditure, but we've also implemented a number of controls internally. So perhaps if you just want to chat to that, and then I'll come back on fraudulent grants and what we've done in the system.
Thanks, Commissioner. In terms of irregular expenditure, we've enhanced our processes within the organization. So we've developed policies and SOPs that are now fully compliant with the regulations, particularly in the SCM space, because a lot of irregular expenditure arose in that space. And we found that our policy was not aligned to the National Treasury regulations. So we've enhanced all our policies. We've implemented numerous checklists within the organization. We've implemented multiple reviewer levels. And I think, we found that all of the steps that we have taken have borne fruit. If we look at our irregular expenditure, there has been a significant reduction from the 600 million that was reported a year or 2 years ago to where we currently sitting. There's the irregular expenditure that we identified in the current financial year really only relates to historical transactions that were being concluded or at the tail end of their contracts, and we had to go out to market. These were for very critical services that we could not do without within the NLC, and therefore we had to continue with those irregular contracts. But for the most part, we have gone out to market. We've brought in new suppliers to regularize all of the services that were deemed irregular in the past. I know legal services in particular, the media marketing services were all irregular in the past. So we've implemented significant controls. We also have reporting mechanisms where if something is identified, it's reported within the 30 days and we start the process in terms of the determination and investigation. As the CRO mentioned, our loss control committee has cleared a significant backlog in terms of the historical irregular expenditure, which would we then be submitting to board for a recommendation to the National Treasury for condonation following the various investigation processes that had to be undertaken. So we have made significant strides in addressing the irregular expenditure challenge at the NLC. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable.
Just before, Commissioner, there are 4 questions on the platform by Honorable Gama. If you can just check them and also make sure that you guys respond to them. They are on the platform.
Okay,
check them now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I wasn't checking that. I will do that right now. Just to respond to Honorable Mshingila, the system, it's a new system that we've introduced on the 2nd of December. Any new system implementation will have its challenges. What we are doing is when we're doing user acceptance testing, we've got over 600 beneficiaries who are actually involved in testing the system. They then point out, this is not working, that's not working. And so we see this as continuous improvement. The system is not a failed system at all. In fact, it's doing what it's intended to do because we are able to. And I think, Honorable Mveli, this is your question about, what are we doing about fraudulent applications or fraudulent grants? Where we find that there has been fraud committed, there's an investigation that's done. And I think in Q3, I reported we submitted about 10 cases to the South African Police Services. Where there are non-compliance matters, and I think that's where Molemos come in, it's a much more developmental approach. We go and work with these NPOs to talk to them about what are the compliance requirements, how they can become compliant. So it's an ongoing process. Our system is a few months old, and we are learning. There's various iterations planned, I think, as we go forward to make changes or to make enhancements as these are brought to our attention or we see them. I think the CFO has already responded to the breakdown of the costs to date. Then in terms of disciplinary action against those implicated. So we have adopted a zero tolerance approach to fraud and corruption, where the SIU gives us any referrals, and they've given us 14 cases. We've got currently, I'm just trying to think. I think there are 4 cases that are still continuing. We've got 2 new ones that came out in July, and so those are also continuing. The rest of the employees either resign they typically resign just before the disciplinary starts, once they've been served with charges, or they resign as part of the disciplinary process. And so all of the SIU matters are really dealt with. But what we're finding is individuals take us to court to try and interdict the disciplinary hearing from taking place. And so that also then delays costs. It delays our processes and adds costs. We've also had to change our disciplinary policy because in the past, internal disciplinaries, you could bring in your lawyer. And we said that is adding to the costs. I think, Honourable Chance, that you had mentioned. And it's about us making sure that we try and allow a fair process, but also that we look at costs. So we've had to take that out of the policy because when we benchmarked against other institutions, that was not the case. I think I've responded to the NPOs and the redress. I just want to have a look. I think in terms of the question about the ICT department being undercapacitated, I think that is a fair comment. What we are doing is we've gone through the structure. We've put together a new structure, and we are anticipating taking this to the board in the April meeting. We're also looking at what kind of skills we need, because to keep the current fusion system limping along also requires capacity, because Oracle has decommissioned that system in 22-23. So there's no support from Oracle in terms of that question. So that is a comment, and that is a matter that as management we are seized with that. I think the upskilling of staff members is something that we are busy doing. We've done that in terms of the modernization process, our change management processes, so that we are able to just look at what are the kind of skills and capabilities individuals need. I just want to go to the chat and look at the questions that Honourable Gama has posed. So I think in terms of the question around the license, the process is still ongoing. So the Auditor General would not have audited that as yet. But I think I will leave that to the Minister's team to respond. In terms of the Act requires the Minister to consult with the board, and I can confirm that consultations between the board and the Minister have taken place. I'm not sure, Chair, if I could ask my chairperson, Prof. Pityana, if he wants to come in on any matter, if that would be appropriate. I'll be guided by you, Chair.
Yes, anytime.
Thank you. Prof. Pityana, can I ask maybe you to come in if you don't mind, please? If there's anything you'd like to share.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now? Honorable Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Just a word of appreciation for the questions that have been raised. And we appreciate the level of insight that members of the committee are showing to us, where there are, as colleagues have said, where there are matters to be followed up, we undertake to do so. Appreciation for a second reason. And the second reason is that we're being invited to inform, if you like, the processes that have been undertaken, especially regarding the issues of the fourth license. And it gives me an opportunity to share some insight into the status of that matter, hopefully in a manner that will be a lot clearer than we've been seeing in the media and in the public domain. It's important to recognize, Chair, if I may, that the Minister is the only person who may issue a license to one license at one time authorizing the license to be done. In doing so, the minister consults with the board. And that process is undertaken very, very clearly and very closely according to Section 13 of the Lotteries Act, sorry. And just one matter that has been raised, I think, by Honorable Tambo. The issues around the political party and as an office bearer are very, very clear. It says that no political party or an office bearer of a political party should have any direct financial interest. A lot of time was spent in the both in the evaluation committee, in the adjudication committee, and by the minister, and the advice that he sought, that copious legal opinions were sought to really understand how far or how deep that question actually goes. And the minister, among other issues of concern to him, is that he feels that he needs to satisfy himself that that any decision he makes is not in breach of that provision, that no political party or an office bearer of a political party has any direct financial interest in an applicant or a shareholder of the applicant. And I feel that that matter is receiving so much attention and sensitivity that I do not believe that it is likely to cause ultimately enormous difficulties. The second thing I want to come to is the chairperson, the honorable chairperson, required us to clarify the two processes. Previously, Ituba was granted an extension of a license of 2 years. And that was according to the provisions of Section 14 of the Act. And that 2 years expires on the 31st of May, 2025. That is the 2 years. The minister, on a separate section, Section 13B, there's a distinct provision for a temporary license. And the temporary license is not the same as the extension of the license in Section 14. And the temporary license is a provision in 13B that says that on certain conditions, the minister may appoint a person or an organ of state for a non-renewable period not exceeding 24 months to conduct the national lottery. So currently, the minister is exploring exactly what that actually means and how it can go. And as soon as he has made up his mind on that, he will make a public request, RFP for a temporary license in terms of 13B of the Act. It seems to us that our role is to make sure that there's as little confusion as possible in this matter. And secondly, that we do everything that we can in the shortest possible time to make sure that there will be an operator of a license in the interest, particularly of those who conduct and operate good causes in our country. And so we do seek to make sure that by whatever mechanisms the minister may be able to grant a license so that the operations of the National Lottery can continue. And we're aware that the minister is looking into these matters very, very closely. The question as to whether there's been conflict of interest or anything like that, that too has been very, very closely looked at. From our point of view, Honorable Tambo, the matter has moved away from the board in that the board has given an advice, as it is required to do, to the minister, and the matter is now squarely on the desk of the minister. And therefore, it means that the communications are done by the minister in the processes of communication in terms of where his mind is at, what decisions are being made, and any other processes that need to be undertaken going forward. And the minister does so with on the advice of and with the support of the board, as board at the moment. So we do not feel in any manner at all at the moment that, unfortunate as the delay actually is, we do not feel that the matter is not receiving attention, and we do not feel that the sensitivity around concerns regarding whether there will be a national lottery or not are not being paid attention to. So there is no deliberate delay that we can think of right now. And the work that is going on at the moment is to really look very, very closely what is possible to be done within the law once the current license expires on the 31st of May. Regarding the period of 12 months for the extension of the validity period, and that, of course, is covered in the normal manner by the PFMA. The validity period can be extended, and the validity period has to be extended so that the current applications that are in place can, in fact, remain valid. And the minister may be able to make a decision before the 31st of May, or may be able to make it after the 31st of May. As I understand it, the minister is attending to this matter. He has made no commitment as to when he might make the decision. But in the event that he is not able to make the decision before the 31st of May, he has had to protect the situation, the applicants, so that that application remains valid and can be considered after the 31st of May. That is the thinking behind it, and I can't take it beyond that. For that, the colleagues in the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition can continue the process from there onwards. My sense is, Chair, that the work that has been done and the answers that have been given remain very important and valid, both in terms of dealing with the corruption issues, and especially how do we deal with whistleblowers and people like that. A lot of work, as we have heard, has gone into that. And we have no reason to fear that any of these are not receiving attention. We really do believe that all the matters that have been raised in committee are receiving appropriate attention, for which we thank the colleagues in the executive for doing so. I am deliberately not dealing with the speculation about the motivations for the delays and all of that I am unable to deal with at the moment at all. But we are actually quite confident that these matters are receiving attention as soon as possible. As the minister has made up his mind, an announcement will be made public. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I don't know it with your current explanation. Maybe I can just very quickly give members who have specifically asked this question. But I sense a very strong contradiction from what you say with regard to the extension of the validity period vis-a-vis an attempt towards Section 13B. I call it an attempt because there is a lot of presupposition from what you say. So, so in my mind, and probably in the mind of the industry and those that have bidded, this invariably is creating a confusion what we're trying to do. And secondly, it's creating a lot of skepticism in terms of what is to obtain. And thirdly, it's creating a sense of interference, if you like, because the minister issues a license, but the minister does not adjudicate over the license. That process is prescribed. So we have to state it on record so that we are not seen not to be quite sharply raising issues of oversight. By no means we want to put our hands or get involved, but we're just saying this explanation and this process or that pronouncement by the minister does create a confusion in the market in terms of what is it that you want to do. Because surely, Prof, you know that if the license expires even today, with the period that is remaining, there is no way you can go on what you term a mini RFP and get somebody new to put 34,000 terminals across South Africa and run this thing. It's not feasible, and it's not logical over and above that. So I thought I must raise this emphasis because the intention, we're a public institution, so our intentions and our pronouncement must be very clear. And the last point is that we are interested as a committee to know so which provision of the Act has been used for this extension of this validity period, because you can only go to PFMA. If there is any, please help us, whether it gives you the 12 months, whether it's allowed, whether it's according to the rule, because it just can't be with impunity. So we need that kind of assurance. I think that's why many members were asking questions gravitating to that. And you don't necessarily need to respond to things you don't need to respond to, but we have to put them on record so that when there are issues, we can see how we deal with this issue. Lastly, I do think that a potential exists for the companies that have bidded, because an impression is being created that that bid is being adjudicated, right or wrong. A potential exists that if you issue a mini tender, they can interdict you, then create a potential crisis as it were. I know that one of your respondent was saying, no, look, there is no crisis. We've got the money in the reserves. So I think it will be important that we state those things so that there's general appreciation that we are concerned and we are nervous and we want to make sure that there's a conclusion on this matter, because ourselves, we raised quite a number of sharp issues, surely executing our responsibility as oversight. And, the public spread that occurred was undesirable, like a random mob that happened was undesirable. But I hope that we've gone past that stage where we understand that we have a certain responsibility. The minister's got a certain responsibility. We too have certain responsibility as oversight to ask these critical questions so that if anything goes wrong, we must be able to refer back to our record and say, this was our understanding. That's why from time to time, as we'll do in this meeting, we make recommendations for consideration. So the minister or yourselves can consider or not consider, but they will be on record so that when we disagree, we'll be able to say, we did advise. We've got a responsibility, not just to oversight, to ensure that we can also provide advice based on how we've also interpreted the law. So I just thought I must state that amongst many other things. Are there any members who might want to say a thing or two so that we can move towards conclusion? Member Chance?
Mr. Chance?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And thank you for the answers to my questions. I don't need to go into any of the details apart from one important point, which is just to repeat what I said earlier about the information that I've received from a reliable source, that an RFP has been issued for a temporary license to run from the 1st of June 2025 till the 31st of May 2026. Now, either this can be confirmed by the chairperson or the DTIC, or it cannot. And it's a simple answer, yes or no. And this information is going to come out at some point. It may be that it's a closed RFP to the existing bidders, but it's very important that we have information that we can either confirm or deny this, whether it be from the chairperson, the commissioner, or the DTIC. So I'd just like that information to be provided to us. If the answer is no, then Chair, I think that we need an immediate response from the minister. And I'm trying to get the information that I've received confirmed, but we do need to get an answer on this question, please.
Thank you. Any further questions so that we can move towards closure? Let's hand over to you, Commissioner, and the board, so that we can conclude.
Chairperson, if I may, will you allow me?
Yes.
Thank you. Just to say, Chairperson, that the minister will in due course formally announce the position that he's taking. But what I can confirm is that at the moment, the fourth license process has not ended, because the end of the license being 31st of May has not come to an end. So the minister is capable of making that decision before the 31st of May. But what the minister has done, he has extended the validity period of the license so that the applications that have been received could be considered to be still under consideration beyond the 31st of May 2025. That's one part. The second part, which Mr. Chance is raising, is whether there will be a temporary license or not. Now, we are the advisors to the minister. The minister has been looking at several scenarios, what can be done. And as I understand it, and that process will be made known in due course. And in terms of whether following the 31st of May, how is it possible to have a license holder or not? Our view is, and the investigations that we've received from experts, is that it is possible to evaluate and adjudicate a temporary license from the 1st of June and to be valid and meaningful for at least 12 months. So the information we have from experts is that this can be done, and therefore the minister is sitting with all of the expert advice with him, and he will make an announcement in due course. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Sorry, Chair, may I continue? Thank you.
Yes.
I think there were some additional questions. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Prof. Pichana. I think in terms of the question from Honorable Gama on the chat, so we do have a standard checklist in terms of for all our monitoring and evaluation of the projects. As and when new information comes to light, we actually then include that in these various checklists. So there are strategies in terms of where funding has not been utilized for the intended purpose. We do have a deviation process. So grantees can write to us to ask us to deviate from specific line items within the budget. One of the areas that we are picking up internally is perhaps we need to and Mulemo has done quite a bit of work on that, and we'll be taking that to the board for their approval. Because what we're picking up is that there are valid reasons why somebody has to deviate, and so we should perhaps allow for a specific percentage of that funding for deviated requests. So we just need to find out in our risk tolerance strategy. Oh, sorry, I think Prof. Pichana, your mic is on.
Sorry. Apologies.
And so what we will do is we do need to look at that, because I think that's feedback that we're getting from our grantees, and I think that for us would be quite developmental. I think I have responded to those questions. I think just going back to Honourable Chilinga. The 11,416, these are not actual applications. These are individual organizations who are registering their profiles with us. To tell us, because we've gone out on a drive on a marketing campaign to say, tell us what it is that you do if you do ever intend one day applying for funding. And so these are profiles. These are not actual applications, and we are going through that process and working with these individuals to determine, one, are they within their cooling off period? Is there an agent involved? Is there any kind of malfeasance involved? Because the system integrates, and I think this is the question you had asked, Honourable Mveli, about fraudulent applications. Because we are able to check with CIPC, the Department of Social Development, the Department of Basic Education. We are in the process of speaking to and trying to finalize the MOA with the Department of Home Affairs, so that we are able to verify that these are bona fide applications. So the system is working as it's intended. I think there was just another question. Yes, fully agree, Honourable Gama, that we do go to the AG to look at the reparations process, and those discussions we are having in the course of the coming weeks. We have also discussed with National Treasury around these processes. I am going to ask Ms. Tinswalo Nkuna just to talk about, with your permission, Chair, I think there was just one question about the steps to transition to the next licensee. I'll just ask her to come and take the seat. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. With regards to the license transition process, what it requires is that included in an existing license agreement, there is a clause on the end of license conversion, which allows for a period of 12 months prior to the end of an existing license for there to be transition or handover from the current operator to the next appointed operator. The similar provision is included in the license RFP process, wherein applicants are required to indicate what plans they have to ensure that there is smooth transition from the current operator to the next appointed National Lottery and Sports Pools operator. The license transition process allows for the current operator and the next operator who is appointed to engage and ensure that there is smooth transition. This is overseen by the National Lotteries Commission, where sessions will be held between the current operator and the next operator, which will include the plans to roll out the terminals at the retail outlets. As you would know, that if there is a terminal at the retail outlet, then there has to be a change between the current operator to the new one. There is also data migration, which should include information on ticket sales, winning tickets, and unclaimed prizes. As unclaimed prizes are valid for payment for a period of 365 days after the draw date. The current license would have a provision where the operator would also continue paying out prizes from the second licensee, as well as the third license and the fourth license will also have provision made in place that the next operator that comes on board is able to continue to pay out prizes
for tickets that would have been won under the current license. There is also the National Lottery Participants Trust, which is a registered trust with independent members that is registered. And under the trust, it is used to secure unclaimed prizes that would have been won but not claimed by the winners, as well as any funds for ticket sales, including wallet balances of players. As part of the license transition process, what is required is to establish a new participants trust that will have representatives from the next operator together with independent trustees as well as the NLC to ensure that unclaimed prizes are secured and the next operator is able to honor the prize claims for tickets that would have been won under the current license arrangement. Now, as part of the transition, that is where the engagements would take in place at least 6 months before the expiry of a license, wherein we ensure that there is continuity and that on the first day of the commencement of the next license, the new operator is able to commence with their license operations for the National Lottery and Sports Pools. Thank you, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson and members.
Chair and honorable members, I think that concludes the questions that I've had. I'm happy to, if there are any other questions that I may have missed, to take that. And I think, Chair, your statement in terms of, just ensuring completeness, we would really welcome that. We publish the list of all of the payments that we make on our website. And so the portfolio committee can really look at some of those projects and then do oversight on that. And we welcome that. Thank you very much, Chair and honorable members.
Thank you very much. I don't think there's any further hands.
Hey, Mr. Chance, Chair.
Oh, Mr. Chance?
Yes, I'm sorry to be a pest, Chair, but I just wanted to...
You're doing your job. You don't have to be sorry.
No, I wanted to just ask the DTIC representatives on this meeting if they have any information about this RFP. We have had Mr. Pachana's answer, but we haven't had anything from the DTIC.
DTIC?
Thank you, Chairperson. We are not aware of the RFP that has been issued and indicated by Honorable Chance, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are good. Is there anything left, Andre?
Nothing from my side, just to say that we will have in-person meetings next week, both for Tuesday and Wednesday, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to thank the board, led by the chair, thank the commissioner and the team, thank members of parliament and the support staff. I think this concludes our meeting. And then we'll meet next week physically on other issues. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members.
Recording stopped.